Hi there, it's Jennifer, and welcome back to the Thriving Life. I love our music. I just sit here and bop to it every time our our intro plays. All right, so what's up today? We are actually headed for a topic today that I used to reject. Honestly, I was such a massive lone wolf that I wasn't available to the idea that we actually need community. Can you believe it? I was so afraid of people and not even afraid of people, just trying to get it right, trying to do it myself. If I included anybody else, I couldn't get it right because other people would be helping me. It was so young in my head way back when. So for that reason, I value community and my friends and my connections so deeply now. In fact, so much so that I'm trying to not I'm trying to, I am simplifying my life so that I can be in community more. So why in these times does community feel like it's difficult or like people are siloing or heading apart? How do we come back together as one human community, right? How do we find the people that we're meant to hang out with? How do we transcend lone wolfiness and experience the exponential results that happen from our relationships? And I wonder if I would love to hear in the chat actually if you are craving deeper connections with people or the kind of, I don't know, that real sense of I'm going to say belonging, but belonging I don't mean in a confined way, in a way where you feel seen and free to be heard. Are you looking for that? I'd love to hear from you in the chat if that's where you're at, where community and finding your people actually matter, especially in these times of great change. Yeah. So type it in. And in the meantime, off we go with respect to answering all those questions. So we're going to try to align on how to find your community that aligns with you, why it's important right now, how you can leverage community, uh, what happens to your soul, and why, if you want to exponentiate your life, community and relationship matters so much. I'm really on a mission right now to empower leaders to find clarity and fulfillment in these times of great change. If you're here, you're a leader. You're a leader of your family. You're a leader of a corporation. You're a leader of something that affects others. And so, for me, this sense of connectedness, sense that we can transcend our lone wolfiness, matters so incredibly much. So, I'm wondering if you are already in a community that's like home tree for you. I'm wondering if that's so. And if you've ever been in a community that's like home tree for you, what was that like? How did that feel? What did it add to your life? I'm in a couple of them. One is called the Purple Fish Mastermind. Another one, I'm on the board of the Conscious Center for Living and the Center for Conscious Living and Dying here in Asheville. Uh, but we also realized, just to take a pause for station identification here, we realized quite a while ago when I started to understand that my sense of needing to be a lone wolf, I would say that happened about 15 years ago when I started to realize that, nothing gets created without team, family, relationship, connectedness. Nothing does. Otherwise, we're doing it all ourselves. And as a result of that, I realized that I did have a posse, a very small posse that needed to expand. But at the time, I had a small posse of people that saw me and got me. And when I was upset, they could help just hear me from a place of neutrality. I also had a small community of people that helped to guide me and also pointed me in directions of I'd say programs or insights or things that would help, and we would do that for each other. And I'm so grateful for, all of those people, including my mom and dad, my bestie Jeannie, Adam, Susanna, Stephanie. I mean, there was back then there was a very small group. And now I include a lot more people in that sort of soul family area, but I realize the importance of it so deeply that we created Agents of Awakening directly for that reason. Agents of Awakening is our community here at the Wide Awakening that helps people have a thriving life. And you could actually join it for free. You can actually join it for free at agentsofawakening.com. And I highly recommend it. Do some of the programs in there. More importantly, join our monthly a Awaken Conversation call where it's myself and soul family members, and we jump into leadership, quantum physics, how consciousness affects our ability to thrive in times of great change. And it's deep questions asked by brilliant people, answered in a way that builds bridges to your soul and has you free yourself of the confines of all the shoulds, musts, and have tos of humanity so you can get back to who you are and why you're on the planet. Answering the question, what's the greatest thing I can do with the skills I already have that would have me making the biggest difference? Waking up inspired and going to bed knowing that you did what you came to the planet for. So, all right. The topic at hand, dear friends. So when we are lone wolfing it, when we're not in community, and I can speak from my experience, and I have, 3 one-on-one clients right now, and I can say that the thing that they all have in common is that they have felt unseen and misunderstood, but they're out there in corporate as executives. I mean, these are another person is a doctor, another person is, these are people that are out there doing stuff. But when you're a leader, it can seem sometimes like you're on your own as a leader. But and what that can do is we have ideas. We tend to be people who are visionary. We tend to have ideas about the world or about our workplace or about our family. And when we ideate like that and we're creators like that, um, we're the ones that are coming up with the ideas. Have you ever thought that? It's like you had a great idea even for how to load the dishwasher. It doesn't even matter what it's about. I was like, wow, if I load the dishwasher this way, and given that I am the efficiency queen, I love efficiency. So I really love, for instance, looking at the dishwasher and going, yeah, we got to do it this way because we could fit more dishes, blah, 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 blah. My brain just works that way. Some of you might come from efficiency. Some of you may come from how do you get more connectedness? How do we create more connectedness in our communities? Some of you might come from, I don't know. You might come from how do we inspire more people? It might be your modus operandi. I really love the idea of efficiency. And this is how my unique brain works. I wonder how your unique brain works that literally guides, right? Because what happens is that's what will drive the bus. This thing that inspires you, or this way of being that probably comes somewhere from childhood or from some intense experiences, it will start driving the bus, right? And because it starts to drive the bus, it will inform your creativity. And from that place of creativity, it's a differentiating feature of who you are. It makes you unique. But as soon as we get into your uniqueness, and as soon as we get into who you really are, what happens is all of a sudden you're separate. That's what makes you special. That's what makes you nifty. That's what makes you. So I would love to hear, just kind of roll around in that. What makes you unique? What can actually separate you from it? Like, you think that, how come nobody else sees things this way? Do you remember being a little kid and actually looking at your family and kind of knowing what's going on in your family? Like, this, my father thinks this way and my mother thinks this way. And even at 4 years old, you could kind of tell what was going on with their thinking, right? And so, like, why they were having arguments, you could already see. These are the things that make us unique. And in that uniqueness, because we see from the bigger picture, that's also the stuff that can make us feel like we're separate. But in reality, the thing that where we come together, sorry for that pause, where we come together is from a place of understanding that, in fact, it is the knowing that you're unique and the knowing that we have a place of leadership from that place of uniqueness. When we honor that uniqueness, when we kind of know that each of us belongs to a greater consciousness rather than trying to belong by changing ourselves to be the same as other people. When we actually honor that uniqueness, we can belong to the group of people that know that the uniqueness matters. So think about that. In our leadership, in our unique way of thinking, because of the past and the other lives we've had in this life and our upbringing, our height, our color, the religious background we had, it all makes us incredibly unique and empathetic and compassionate for different things. But it's in recognizing that the very design of life is such that our uniqueness is what gives us our power and what gives us a perception and a perspective that nobody else has. That when all those different perspectives and perceptions come together, instead of trying to change everybody to think your way, all of a sudden we create a symphony orchestra where all the instruments are playing together. Community, true community, is a place not where there is groupthink, but true community is where we recognize, at least in Agents of Awakening, this is how it is for our community, where we actually recognize and embrace our individual uniqueness, such that all those unique expressions, all those different instruments in the orchestra get to come together and play a symphony, where we're not creating some ubiquitous soup of people that all think the same. But the one thing that brings us together is that we're all looking to build a bridge, make a difference, be the wholeness of who we came to be here on the planet. And that is non-denominational, my friends. So imagine that on some level, we actually don't belong to humanity. We actually belong to the greater wisdom that gave birth to our unique expression. Let me say that again. I wonder what would happen to our stress levels in this world if instead of trying to belong to humanity, i.e., getting everyone else to see us or grok us or get us somehow, we actually understood that we were gotten or seen or understood by something much greater than that, and that we don't need the affirmation and validation of other people to be the piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth that we are. Because the fact that we're alive means that infinite wisdom already thought that we were a good idea. And when we actually belong to that perspective, all of a sudden what gets to happen is, from that perspective, we stop fighting to belong or to be seen in humanity. What if the community that you sought was something like that? What if you changed your mind about how you felt about belonging? Would it be helpful to hold that perspective? Does that help to see yourself differently, that you already belong to the universe at large, and that trying to belong to humanity actually goes against the very birth of your unique soul that was meant to be different? And that the real work actually is not to belong to humanity, that the real work is about building bridges to your understanding and helping others to see maybe the projects or the reasons why you're doing certain things, that you start building bridges as a leader without concern about whether people get or see you. That being gotten or seen is actually a pursuit that is quite a waste of time. Does this make sense? So, my friends, from that place, let's have the rest of this conversation. The rest of this conversation is understanding also what lone wolfing it is. When we lone wolf or when we try to do it all ourselves, what we're really saying to consciousness is, I'm not really interested in any extra help, which, by the way, also includes the greater help that comes from, that place in you that's magnetic to opportunities. You now, as you lone wolf it, and let me define that lone wolfing it usually comes from a time in your life where someone behaved towards you like you need to change in order for them to be happy. Usually that comes from parents, because that's what our parents did, and that's probably what we have done as parents, which is the goal, my child, is to actually get it right according to me. Not every parent has been this way. There's lots of incredible parents out there, if you were fortunate enough to have parents like that. Your goal, young person, that's what we got told, your goal is to become acceptable, to become approvable. But the thing is, you guys, if you if you let yourself be helped by others, by definition, what happens is you have now not made yourself acceptable or approvable, because if you get help by others, you didn't do it. So lone wolfing is part of this crazy, crazy decision that so many of us make to not be contributed to, because how are you supposed to prove your worth, prove your enoughness, accomplish the things that need to be accomplished in order for you to get that stamp on your forehead? That's generally where that decision comes from. Isn't that crazy? And lone wolfing it delays the exponential expansion of all of your dreams and ideas. Right? So when I was lone wolfing it for so long, um, I remember my ego being so big. I was a nutritionist. I was having a lot of fun, and I had an assistant, and she really did help me, and we had lots of fun, and I would go out on speaking gigs, and I got on TV and all this kind of stuff. But there was a certain point where I realized, like, I can't grow any further. This is, I felt like, okay, I've proved it. I'm really amazing. Yay. But it's very empty. And, I got some accolades. But I'll tell you, the fulfillment and meaning in that, meh, very appreciative for everything I learned in that part of my life. But the fulfillment and meaning and connection was missing. And because I was missing fulfillment and meaning connection because I placed myself on a pedestal because I was a lone wolf, because I did that, what ended up happening was, I'm on the pedestal by myself. Or I'm very shy and introverted, so I was introverted and shy by myself. And things get exponentiated by our vulnerable relationships with others. Things get exponentiated by our willingness to co-create with others. But I was too busy proving myself to my childhood back then. Right? And then there were a couple of people that came along, and I watched them, and I was like, oh, there's a whole other way of being. And I joined a really cool community, and it was so fun. And I started doing some work with other people. And it really made a huge difference. So community, especially in times of great change, reflects back to you your brilliance, but in a side-by-side way, not in an I'm better than you way. The time for gurus is now over. So, my friends, I suggest that you use the following parameters. I'm not saying these are the best, but this is what I use to kind of determine what it is that is the sort of the parameters for the kind of communities, groups, associations, whatever, that I want to affiliate with. First thing is that there's a certain aspect of everyone being a perpetual student, that there's no gurus as part of, like, it's part of the value system of the community. There's a certain amount of vulnerability also. So I'm looking that, that for that feeling of there, but for the grace of God go we, and we're all in this together, I'm looking for a sense of generosity, where if I need something, or if I'm really in a quandary, that someone's going to be able to just pick up the phone and go, I saw you asking that question. I have the answer, because I would do the same. I love being able to contribute. I literally just did that yesterday, that kind of thing. And the last thing I look for in community is that it evolves me, that we're playing a game that's evolutionary, that I become more, I become better. I'm in my becoming in that community, right? So It's exactly how we created our Agents of Awakening community for people that are interested in what we do around, you know, quantum leaping their lives and answering that question: what's the greatest thing you can do with the least amount of effort, right? That would make the biggest difference and have you waking up inspired. So, from here, how is it that we can deepen our relationships within community or with our current levels of friendship? First, start listening more than you talk. So be like St. Francis, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. Really seek to understand. Then, when you do seek to be understood, be vulnerable. Talk about how you feel. Talk about what's going on for you. And third, when you're connecting with someone, pay soul attention to them, at least for the time that you're talking, such that not because you're trying to make them feel good about themselves, but so that you mine the gold from the conversation, and then it leaves you with a sense of you were worthy, that you were worthy of the depth of that conversation, not just them. And finally, be a net contributor. Just be a net contributor. You might say, yeah, but there are lots of people out there that are takers. I know. I've experienced that. There are people, so many people just want to go to lunch with me, and I know why. I can tell why. I'll take you to lunch. I'll buy you lunch. I'm like, oh, no. Be a net contributor. Be someone who actually, from your heart, when it presents, offers to assist. And even if someone takes it for granted or takes advantage of it, you get to say when that relationship ends. You still have free will. If you are a net contributor, you don't get to feel bad about that you did that. You just get to redirect the relationship when it seems off balance. But when you're generous, you tend to attract other generous people over time. It is one of the main factors I've found with anyone who is financially abundant and has a meaningful life. Both factors, financially abundant and has a very meaningful, rich life. They're incredibly generous, authentically generous. Yeah. Last but not least, next week, we're going to be talking about being ready to enhance your vitality and clarity. And I look forward to next. We're going to talk about your health and vitality, my friends. I hope today was helpful for you. I look forward to next week, and let's keep thriving together. See you then.